Good evening. My name is George Sanderson, and I'm a storyteller. A quiet guide through tales that stir the imagination and gently lead you toward rest. Tonight, I'll take you on a calm journey through Middle-earth, a world where magic lingers and the bravest hearts are often the smallest. You'll meet Nori, a curious young Harfoot who dares to trust the unknown when others would turn away. So lie back, close your eyes, let each word slow your breath, and each moment carry you a little closer to sleep. And if you'd like to return to these quiet adventures, subscribe to the channel so you'll never miss the next story. Let's begin. In the gentle lands of Rovanian, where soft grasses sway and fireflies paint the twilight sky, a small, barefoot folk wanders with the turning of the seasons. They are Harfoots, the most common of hobbits, short and nimble, browner of skin, and always unshod, their feet calloused and sure. Quietly they tread ancient paths, moving their caravans and hiding their tracks from unfriendly eyes. At the slightest hint of outsiders on the road, the Harfoots swiftly disappear into the underbrush, melting into the landscape as if they were never there at all. Such secrecy is their way of survival. For ages untold they have roamed and remained unseen, guarding their families by keeping to their own. Among this wandering tribe lives a young woman named Eleanor Brandyfoot, more commonly called Nori. Nori is a Harfoot of the Second Age, the daughter of Largo and Brandyfoot and elder sister to little Dilly. Ever since she was small, Nori's bright eyes have been filled with questions, her heart brimming with curiosity. While most Harfoots are content to remain hidden and safe, Nori aches to see what lies beyond the hedgerows and far green hills of their world. Her mother often catches Nori gazing off at distant clouds or stray birds, and worries gently that her daughter's spirit may someday outrun her caution. Largo, her father, chuckles and pats Nori's curly head, assuring that the girl's got a true traveler's heart. Still, even he hopes aloud that Nori's feet won't carry her too far from the wagon trail. This evening, the tribe makes camp as they do every night. At dusk, the caravan halts and the Harfoots arrange their wagons in a snug circle beneath sheltering oak and ash trees. Tiny lanterns are lit one by one, glowing like low-hanging stars around the encampment. The older Harfoots cook stewed turnips and wild mushrooms over their fires, speaking in lilting whispers that mingle with the chirr of crickets. The comforting aroma of supper drifts through the twilight. Younger Harfoots play quietly at the edge of the lamplight, chasing one another through ferns and heather, or scooping up fireflies in cupped hands before letting them go. They trade fanciful tales of what might lie beyond the next ridge, giggling at their own pretend bravery. Nori sits a little apart from the others, perched on an old stump beside her family's wagon, a simple wooden flute resting in her hands. She carries the flute wherever she goes, the same instrument that another wanderer named Nori, a dwarf of Durance folk who once journeyed with Thorin Oakenshield's company, was known to play. Nori Brandyfoot does not yet know that dwarf's legend or the songs he played, but somehow the music of his kin flows through her fingers. On gentle nights like this, she brings the flute to her lips and breathes out soft melodies that drift among the trees like a warm breeze. The notes of her tune rise and fall, slow and sweet. Harfoots nearby pause to listen. The children cease their scurrying for a moment, and even the elders tilt their heads to catch the lilting strains. The music melts into the hush of dusk, and more than one weary traveler's shoulders relax at the sound. The summer twilight stretches on, blue and deep, crickets hum, and a breeze stirs the dew-damp leaves of oak and birch. In the distance, a brook tumbles over smooth stones, its murmur blending with faint laughter in the camp. Nori finishes her song and lowers the flute. She gazes beyond the firelight to the dark shapes of far-off hills. Her sister Dilly toddles over and tugs at her sleeve, eager to show a moth perched on a toadstool, its wings glowing in the lantern light. Nori smiles and nods, admiring the little creature with Dilly for a moment. Yet even as she does, her gaze keeps straying to the black outline of the horizon. She imagines tall mountains like jagged teeth against the sky, and rivers as broad as lakes, and forests older than memory. To her, the open road beckons like a whispered secret from just beyond the circle of wagons. She dreams of seeing strange lands and meeting the people from grand stories, perhaps even a towering elf with starlight in his eyes, or a gruff dwarf with a beard down to his belt, or one of the big folk men who build villages and roads of stone. Nori's heart swells with longing as the first stars peep out overhead. Somewhere, beyond those hills, lies a world she has never seen. She can almost hear it calling in the sigh of the wind. Little does Nori know that very soon, her quiet world will begin to change in ways she cannot imagine. Summer moves on as the Harfoots continue their seasonal wanderings. One golden afternoon during the migration, Nori and her best friend Poppy Proudfellow join a few younger Harfoots on a small adventure off the trail. Drawn by the sweet scent of ripe fruit, they tiptoe through tall meadow grasses toward the ruins of an old farmstead long since abandoned. Beyond a tumbled stone wall, they discover a hidden grove of wild blackberry bushes. Dark purple berries hang heavy on the brambles. With delighted giggles, the children begin plucking them by the handful. Poppy grins at Nori as juice stains their fingers and lips a bright violet. For a little while, the air is filled with the sound of munching and soft laughter. In that moment, under the late-day sun, Nori's heart dances. This small adventure, sneaking a treat with friends, feels like a taste of the freedom she craves. The joy is suddenly broken by Dilly's sharp whisper. "Nori, look." The young girl stands a few paces away, eyes wide as saucers, pointing at a patch of mud near the brambles. There, sunk deep in the earth, is a footprint far larger than any Harfoot's foot. It is at least 3 times the size, with a strange boot tread pattern pressed into the wet ground. The children gather around, berry baskets forgotten. A hush falls over them. Nori kneels down beside the enormous print, reaching out with trembling fingers to trace its edges. The mud is still damp. Something or someone very large passed this way not long ago. A chill prickles the back of the unknown has left its mark here, right in their secret berry patch. Suddenly, the wide world feels much closer and far less safe. Heart pounding, Nori gently urges the younger Harfoots to head back. She and Poppy exchange a meaningful look. Both of them know they've lingered too far from the caravan. As dusk approaches, they herd the children quickly and quietly through the grass and back toward the main trail. By the time the last light of day is fading, everyone has rejoined the larger group, breathless and a bit shaken. Nori says nothing of the footprint to the others, but she cannot stop thinking about it. Over supper, her eyes continually drift eastward, wondering what giant creature might be roaming nearby. Nori remains quiet through the evening, but she cannot stop glancing toward the dark eastern woods. As night falls, a faint worry gnaws at her, an intuition that the unknown footprints may only be the beginning of something far beyond her little world. That night, as the Harfoots settle in for their nightly rest, Nori lingers awake. The stars are particularly bright. Poppy snores softly from a bedroll beside her, but Nori's mind is far too full for sleep. She steps away from the dozing camp, just beyond the circle of wagons, to breathe the night air. In the quiet, she whispers to herself a reassurance that all is well. Perhaps the footprint was old, she thinks, or maybe just a trick of mud and shadow. She is about to return to her family's wagon when a sudden rushing sound tears through the sky. Nori's head snaps upward. High above, a streak of light hurtles across the darkness. A blazing ember with a tail of fire. It grows brighter, roaring as it descends. Other Harfoots cry out in alarm as the brilliant object streaks overhead and disappears beyond the tree line with a distant boom. For a heartbeat, all is silent. Then a gentle rain of glowing cinders drifts down like orange snowflakes, extinguishing in the cool grass. The ground trembles ever so slightly beneath Nori's bare feet. Her breath catches in her throat. A falling star. Without hesitating, Nori grabs a lantern and dashes toward the woods where the fiery star fell. Nori! Wait! Poppy has been jolted awake by the commotion and runs after her friend, fear and curiosity warring on her face. Together, Nori and Poppy make their way through the dark trees, following a faint orange glow that pulses beyond the next glade. Warm air rushes against them, carrying an earthy smell of char. Finally, they reach a newly made crater in a clearing. The sight that greets them is like a scene from a dream. A great circle of earth scorched black, with embers glowing along the rim. At its center lies a figure. A person, large and curled on his side amid the smoldering grass. Nori's eyes widen. The man is enormous compared to a Harfoot, at least twice her height by the looks of him. He is unclothed save for a ragged gray cloak wrapped around his form. Ash and soot cover his skin and beard. Amazingly, the fires that should have burned him have died down to gentle coals, and the ground around him flickers with fading heat. Nori cautiously steps into the crater, holding Poppy's hand for balance as they navigate the warm embers. The air shimmers with residual heat, but when Nori reaches out, she finds the cinders are not hot at all. It is as if the fire here has been tamed or rendered harmless. Poppy gasps softly when the man's eyes flutter open for a blink, revealing pale gray irises that reflect the starlight. He murmurs something incoherent and then falls back into unconsciousness. Despite her own racing heart, Nori feels a surge of compassion for the strange giant lying helpless before them. She cannot possibly leave him here. Gathering her courage, she motions for Poppy's help. The two Harfoots retrieve a small handcart they passed on the way, one used for gathering mushrooms, and carefully roll it to the crater's edge. Though the man is heavy, together they manage to heave and maneuver his limp form into the cart, cushioning his head with Nori's shawl. He moans faintly but does not wake. Working by the wan light of the embers, they quietly wheel the cart back toward the camp, struggling over roots and through brush but never once considering giving up on him. By the time the first birds begin to chirp and a gray hint of dawn touches the sky, Nori and Poppy at last return. They hide the cart and its unconscious passenger in a dense thicket not far from the wagons. Word soon spreads of something strange that fell from above, and the Harfoots are on edge. Nori's parents scold her sharply when they realize she ventured toward the crash. Bringing outsiders near the caravan is against every rule the Harfoots live by. The tribe does not welcome strangers, especially ones that literally arrive in fire from the sky. Yet when Nori shows them the slumbering, soot-covered man, pointing out that he's clearly hurt and alone, some of their anger softens into unease. Sadok Burrows, the caravan's leader and trail finder, insists the mysterious stranger be kept at a distance. No good will come of this, he warns, reiterating that the Harfoots do not interfere with the outside world. Nori's mother gently urges her to let it be. Nori, however, cannot turn her back on the vulnerable giant she rescued. Exhausted from the night's events but steadfast in her resolve, she promises to watch over him in secret. That morning, as the others reluctantly agree to carry on and let the outsider fend for himself, Nori creeps back to the thicket to check on the sleeping man. He lies curled where they left him, breathing steadily, looking for all the world like some ancient, fallen star given human shape. Nori reaches out and brushes a lock of ashy hair from his face. In sleep, he seems peaceful, even kind. "Who are you?" she whispers, not expecting any answer. Later, as Nori finally closes her own eyes to snatch a bit of rest, her dreams are filled with strange and wondrous images. She sees unfamiliar stars wheeling in the darkness, forming patterns she does not recognize. In her dream, the tall stranger stands among these stars. He raises his hand, and hundreds of fireflies glow and dance around him in swirling constellations. The lights form shapes that speak to Nori's heart, though she cannot name them. When she awakens, dew is on the grass and a resolve has hardened within her. However mysterious this wanderer may be, she feels certain that he came into her life for a reason. Nori vows quietly to herself that she will help him find what he is seeking, no matter the cost. Morning finds the Harfoot caravan abuzz with nerves. A big folk stranger lies hidden in a nearby thicket, and although Nori tries to assure everyone he is harmless, most of the Harfoots eye the bushes with deep suspicion. After snatching only a brief nap, Nori slips away from camp to check on the man from the stars. Poppy insists on coming along. She's anxious, but loyal to her friend. The two creep to the thicket where they left him. To their surprise, the stranger is awake, sitting upright amid the ferns. He has drawn odd symbols and swirls in the dirt around him. When Nori and Poppy approach, he looks up with a start. He speaks no words. Indeed, it seems he cannot, or perhaps does not know how. But his eyes are gentle if confused. The tall man points to his own chest and then to the sky, as if trying to explain something. Nori steps closer, her small frame barely coming up to his shoulders even while he is seated. Gently, she says, "You fell from up there, didn't you?" He tilts his shaggy head. Obviously, he does not understand the Harfoot tongue yet. Furrowing his brow in concentration, the stranger then does something unexpected. He raises a hand and closes his eyes. A subtle energy hums in the air. All around, fireflies rise from the grass, dozens of them blinking in the morning shadows. Nori and Poppy watch in amazement as the tiny glowing insects begin to swirl in patterns at the stranger's silent command. They twist into shapes, first a rudimentary circle, then what looks like a cluster of stars. The fireflies trace a constellation in the air above the stranger's head, a pattern of points that Nori vaguely recognizes from Sadok's star charts. Nori's breath catches. Is this what the stranger is seeking? Before she can say more, their wonder is interrupted by a distant shout from the caravan. Poppy tugs Nori's sleeve urgently. It's Dilly, calling for her sister at the top of her lungs from the edge of camp. Something is wrong. Nori gives the stranger a quick, apologetic smile and whispers, "I'll be back, I promise." Then she and Poppy dart out of the thicket and race toward the wagons. They arrive to find a small crowd gathered. Largo Brandyfoot, Nori's father, is lying on the ground wincing in pain. He had been lifting a crate of wheels to prepare for the day's travels when he slipped off a wet log. His ankle is twisted at an unnatural angle and already swelling. Kneels beside him, her face creased with worry, while Marigold, Nori's mother, attempts to bind Largo's foot with strips of cloth. Nori presses through to her father's side and takes his hand. Largo manages a weak grin through his grimace, trying to reassure his daughter, but Nori can see tears of pain in the corners of his eyes. The Harfoot leader, Sadok Burrows, grimly examines Largo's injury. An elder with kindly yet firm eyes, Sadok carries the logbook of their travels and the wisdom of many migrations. With a heavy heart, he declares that the Brandyfoot family will have to pull up the rear during the journey today. It is simply practical. Largo cannot move quickly now, and if they lag behind it will spare the rest of the caravan from slowing to his pace. But Nori and her family know the truth. This punishment is also for Nori's bringing an outsider into their midst, against Harfoot laws. Traveling at the back of the caravan is a perilous position. The last wagons are the most vulnerable to wolves and other dangers. If anyone falls too far behind, the tribe's custom is to leave them for the good of all. Sadok's decision is final, but his tone is regretful. Nori's mother bows her head in acceptance, though tears brim in her eyes. Nori feels a flush of guilt and resolve. Her actions have put her family in jeopardy, but she will find a way to keep them together. By midday, the caravan is on the move once more. Dozens of Harfoots shoulder their packs and take up the poles of their wagons. Wheels begin creaking along the narrow trail heading east. Their route will take them across the wide lands of Rovanian, through places known as Norfield Glen and the Braids, and into the deepening woods beyond. Though it is still summer, a crispness hints at the edge of the breeze. Nori walks beside her family's cart, every muscle tensed with determination. Largo hobbles along as best he can, leaning on a stick, while Marigold push the heavy wagon from behind. Dilly tries to help by heaving her tiny shoulder against a wheel, but it barely budges. Before frustration or despair can set in, a looming shape appears at Nori's side. It is the stranger. He has quietly joined their ranks, striding out from the trees. Gasps ripple through the nearby Harfoots as the tall man takes hold of the cart handles in his great hands. With hardly any effort, he begins to push, lending the strength of many to the Brandyfoot's wagon. Largo lets out a cry of surprise, nearly stumbling in the sudden surge forward. Nori's first instinct is to smile gratefully, but she sees fear in her parents' faces. Around them, murmurs spread. The outsider is walking among them. Some Harfoots quicken their pace to get away from him. Others cast anxious glances backward. Sadok watches warily from up ahead, but does not halt the march. Nori falls into step a few paces from the stranger, neither too near to startle him nor too distant to communicate. "Thank you," she says softly. He does not reply, not understanding her words, but he meets her gaze and nods once. In that nod, Nori senses kindness and resolve. The stranger continues to push Largo's cart as though it weighs nothing. Slowly, conversation picks up again among the Harfoots, though now in hushed tones. They do not know what to make of this mysterious giant who appeared from the stars and now walks in their caravan's midst. Some are afraid, some merely curious. Nori's family remains quiet, focusing on the road ahead. They have a long journey before them, and now a new burden, or perhaps a new hope, traveling with them. As afternoon stretches on, Nori ponders the stranger's purpose. The image of the Firefly constellation lingers in her mind. She suspects that her discovery of him was no mere accident, but rather a crossing of paths that was somehow meant to be. With each mile they traverse, her conviction quietly grows. She must help this man find what he is seeking. The open road has brought an adventure right into her hands, and despite the risks, Nori's heart is steadfast. As the caravan presses further eastward, the terrain changes. The open meadows and gentle glens give way to dense woodlands. Towering trees crowd the narrow paths, their interlaced branches filtering the sunlight into shifting patterns on the forest floor. The Harfoots move carefully now, aware that food is growing scarce and the woods can be dangerous for the unwary. One late afternoon, as the tribe sets up a temporary camp in a clearing, Nori joins Poppy and another young Harfoot, Malva Meadowgrass, on a foraging trip. Carrying woven baskets, the trio ventures a short distance from the wagons, eyes peeled for any edible mushrooms, nuts, or roots among the ferns. The air is still and thick with the scent of moss. Nori leads the way, pushing aside a curtain of willow branches as they explore a shaded grove. They've just spotted a cluster of wild carrots in the underbrush when a low growl freezes them in their tracks. From behind a rotting log, a pair of glowing eyes stare out. Then another pair and another. 3 gaunt, gray-furred wolves slink forward, their lips curled to reveal yellowed fangs. These are not ordinary forest wolves. Something about their matted fur and the unnatural glint in their eyes betrays a touch of evil influence. Perhaps the recent upheavals in the world have driven them from their usual hunting grounds or made them bold. Malva lets out a stifled yelp and drops her basket. The wolves circle, muscles tensed. Nori's heart pounds so loudly she thinks it might burst. She grabs Poppy's hand with one of her own and Malva's sleeve with the other, slowly backing the 3 of them toward the direction of camp. But the lead wolf lowers its head and snarls, ready to spring. In a flash of movement, the beast lunges through the air, jaws gaping for the kill. Nori throws her arms up instinctively, a scream caught in her throat, when suddenly a great force sweeps over her like a gust of wind. A deep, resonant shout echoes through the trees, not in any language she knows. The charging wolf is caught mid-leap by an unseen power and hurled sideways as though struck by a giant's hand. It slams into the trunk of a cedar with a yelp and falls in a stunned heap. The other 2 wolves whirl to face this new threat. There stands the stranger, panting and determined, one arm outstretched. He must have followed quietly behind the foraging party to keep watch, and now he has revealed himself just in time. With a fierce, sweeping gesture, the stranger sends the other wolves flying back, his own eyes widening in shock, as if he hadn't known he could do it as well, knocking them away into the bushes with supernatural force. The forest erupts into chaos. Frightened birds take wing, and leaves shake as if in a squall. For a moment, silence falls. The 3 wolves scramble to their feet, bruised and confused by the invisible assault. Deciding that this prey is far more trouble than it's worth, they slink off into the deeper dark of the forest, whining. The stranger stands trembling. The effort of the magic has taken something out of him. Nori can see a bleeding bite wound on his left forearm. The lead wolf must have clipped him before being tossed aside. The tall man's face twists in pain as he grips his arm. Nori steps toward him, wanting to thank him and tend to his injury, but he suddenly staggers away like a wounded bear seeking solitude. Clutching his arm, the stranger lurches through a stand of birch trees toward the sound of running water. Nori hesitates only a moment before following at a distance, motioning for Poppy and Malva to stay put or fetch help. She tracks the stranger to a small, clear spring that bubbles up between mossy stones nearby. With a groan, the man plunges his injured forearm into the spring. At once, the water around his arm begins to seethe and frost over. Ice crystals spread outward from the wound, crawling over the surface of the pool and up along the stranger's arm. A thin mist forms in the air as the sudden cold meets the warmer forest air. Nori approaches slowly, her earlier fear now mixed with concern and awe. The stranger kneels by the water, eyes closed, seemingly in a trance as the ice envelopes his forearm. His face contorts not with pain, but with intense concentration. Nori edges closer and murmurs softly, "Are you all right?" She reaches out, lightly touching his shoulder to offer comfort. In that instant, the ice that has formed on the stranger's arm leaps across to Nori's hand as well. In the blink of an eye, her small brown hand is encased in glassy frost, stuck fast to the stranger's arm by a sheath of ice. A bolt of panic shoots through Nori. Her fingers go numb and the cold creeps up to her wrist. She tries to pull away, but it feels as though 1,000 tiny hooks are holding her in place. The stranger's eyes fly open in alarm. He had not intended this to happen. He gasps something that might be an apology, though it comes out as a desperate, wordless sound. Nori forces herself to take a slow, shuddering breath. Fear will do no good now. She remembers her mother's gentle admonition whenever Nori got a scrape or bump as a child. Be still, stay calm. So Nori stills herself. The stranger, seeing her cease struggling, also grows quiet and focused. Together they wait, and gradually the ice begins to thaw. The frozen grip releases Nori's hand with a crackling whisper. The sheet of ice melts away into cold rivulets of water that soak into the moss. Nori flexes her freed fingers. They are cold and aching, but unharmed. The stranger's wound appears to have closed, only a faint scar remaining where angry bite marks were moments before. He sits back on his heels, breathing hard but looking more himself again. Nori rubs warmth back into her hand and finally allows herself to exhale in relief. When she dares to meet the stranger's gaze, she finds it full of sorrow and concern. He reaches toward her hand, hesitates, then gently pats it. An awkward attempt to ask if she is hurt. Nori offers a reassuring smile and places her other hand over his for a moment, nodding that she is all right. In the stranger's gray eyes, Nori sees something ancient and kind flicker to life. It is as if he is truly seeing her for the first time, beyond the boundaries of language and fear. Neither can fully understand the other's words yet, but in the calm after the storm, a quiet understanding passes between them. Nori realizes that their fates have become intertwined. Whatever burdens the stranger carries from the sky, she carries them now too in her own small way. He has saved her life, and she has shown him trust. In that unspoken exchange, a bond is formed. That night, as the camp settles, Nori notices the stranger sitting apart under a pine tree, his newly healed arm cradled to his chest. He looks up at the sky, where the stars are just beginning to prick through the twilight, and a forlorn expression passes over his face. Nori wonders what burdens he bears from beyond those stars. She takes a deep breath and walks over to sit beside him. For a while they share the quiet, listening to the chorus of crickets. Then Nori begins to hum a gentle Harfoot lullaby, one her mother used to sing. The stranger closes his eyes and listens. In that peaceful moment, the fear of the day melts away like the last bits of ice, and two companions, small and great, simply rest in each other's company. Weeks pass, and the Harfoots draw near the eastern edge of the great greenwood. One afternoon they arrive at a place they know well, a grove that in years past has always provided a bounty of apples, pears, and berries to refresh them before the next leg of their migration. Nori remembers this grove from her childhood, an almost magical glade of fruit trees where the air is sweet and golden with bees. But when the caravan crests the final hill, a shocking sight greets them. The grove is blackened and ashen. The trunks of the once lush fruit trees are charred charcoal, their branches bare and twisted. A fine gray dust coats the ground, and not a single piece of fruit can be seen. It is as if fire rained from the sky. A murmur of dismay ripples through the Harfoots. They soon learn the cause. Far to the south, the distant mountain Aradruin, also called Mount Doom, had erupted violently not long ago, sending ash clouds that darkened the skies for miles. Even here, weeks later and many leagues away, the fallout has blighted the land. The tribe wanders into the grove, hearts sinking. They run careful hands over the husks of leaves and brittle twigs, hoping to find some scrap of green. There is almost nothing. A few stubborn brown apples lie shriveled on the ground, spoiled. Hunger and disappointment weigh on everyone. This grove was to be their salvation before the coming autumn, and now it offers only dust. As the Harfoots lament softly, the stranger steps forward from the sidelines. He has become a familiar presence in the weeks of travel, though many still keep their distance. Seeing the despair on the small folks' faces, the tall stranger seems to reach a decision. He walks to the center of the grove, where the largest apple tree stands black and silent. Placing a broad hand on the cracked bark, he closes his eyes. Under his breath, he begins to speak strange words in a flowing, musical language Nori has never heard. Later, she will learn it was Quenya, one of the ancient tongues of the elves. The air grows still and expectant. At first, nothing happens, and a few Harfoots exchange skeptical glances. But then, a tremor runs through the blackened tree. Faint lines of light begin to trace along its trunk like veins coming alive. A whisper of green shimmers at the tips of a few branches. He's healing it. Poppy breathes, eyes wide. All around, people gasp as buds unfurl into leaves of bright emerald before their eyes. One or two hard green fruits even begin to form amidst the new foliage. A hopeful laugh escapes Marigold's throat. Some of the children clap in amazement. Nori beams at the stranger's back, elated. Whatever and whoever he may be, his powers are being used to help her people. For the first time, some of the Harfoots look at him with wonder instead of fear. But the wonder is short-lived. The stranger furrows his brow, focusing more power into the dying grove. A low rumble issues from the ground. Without warning, one of the largest branches of the old apple tree cracks with a sharp report. Before anyone can shout a warning, the heavy branch comes crashing down. Nori yanks Dilly backward just in time, both of them tumbling to the ashen ground as the branch slams down where they stood moments before. Dilly screams in fright. Other Harfoots cry out. The brief moment of joy has flipped back to terror. Startled and dismayed, the stranger steps away from the tree, the light fading from its bark. He had not meant for that to happen. He reaches toward Nori and Dilly, concern on his face, but Largo immediately interposes himself, limping on his bad ankle as he places himself between his daughters and the outsider. "Stay back," Largo warns, voice trembling. Around the grove, the Harfoots shrink away once more from the stranger. Someone mutters, "He'll bring more ruin on us." The stranger's eyes dart from frightened face to face. A deep shame and sorrow fill his expression. Nori scrambles up, unharmed except for a scrape, and rushes to reassure everyone that it was an accident. "He was trying to help," she insists desperately, but the tribe's nerves are raw. The orchard is still dead, and now even their wagons are at risk from falling timber. Sadok Burrows, who had watched the event unfold with a frown, gently raises a hand to silence the chatter. In a grave tone, he addresses the stranger directly. "I know you meant well," Sadok says slowly, "but perhaps it's best you leave us be for now." Though Nori can hear compassion in Sadok's voice, the words land like a blow. The stranger lowers his head. With a final, regretful glance at Nori, the tall man turns and strides out of the grove on a path into the shadowy greenwood. Nori calls after him. She even takes a few steps to follow, but Marigold catches her arm, holding her back. "Let him go, love," her mother whispers. "He'll come back if he wants." Nori stands helplessly as she watches the lonely figure disappear among the dark boles of the trees, his gray cloak blending into the gloom until he is lost from sight. Twilight gathers in the ash-choked grove. The Harfoots wordlessly begin to set up camp on the edge of the clearing, too tired and discouraged to move on tonight. They light only a few small fires. The mood is somber and wary. Nori helps her mother soothe little Dilly to sleep, but her own thoughts are far away, following the stranger into the depths of the forest. She feels a pang of guilt, as if she should have run after him regardless of what the others thought. Poppy stays close by Nori's side, offering silent comfort. Neither girl can eat much of the meager dinner of dried herbs and roots. They retire early, though Nori doesn't sleep. She lies curled in her blanket under a tree, eyes open, listening to the uneasy whispers of wind through the burnt branches above. Later that same night, As most of the Harfoots fitfully sleep in the ruined grove, Nori remains awake. She sits up by the faint glow of a dying fire, anxiety gnawing at her. The stranger is out there somewhere in the dark woods, alone. Poppy dozes with her head on Nori's shoulder, and Nori absent-mindedly strokes her friend's curly hair as she keeps watch. The night is eerily quiet, no insect song, no owl hoots. It's as if the forest is holding its breath. A sudden crunch of footsteps on ash makes Nori's heart leap. 3 tall, cloaked figures emerge almost silently from between the charred trees at the far end of camp. They are women, or at least shaped like women, but there is something dreadfully off about them. Their cloaks are pale as bone, their movements unnaturally graceful and predatory. One carries a long staff topped with a claw-like ornament. Another has a gaunt, solemn face and eyes that gleam in the firelight. The third sniffs at the air like a hound on a scent. Nori realizes with a chill that these must be the mysterious followers the stranger spoke of, the ones who were hunting him. The mystics have finally caught up. Within moments, the 3 strangers glide among the sleeping wagons. The leader, called the Dweller, stoops and picks up a fallen piece of fruit, rolling it between her fingers. "He was here," she hisses to her companions. The other 2 spread out, probing the shadows. One mystic peers into a tent, and Nori can see poor Malva cowering inside, eyes wide. Fear grips Nori. If they find the stranger's trail, surely they will harm him, and possibly anyone who stands in their way. Gathering every ounce of courage, Nori rises from her spot and calls out, "Over here." Her voice is high but firm in the silence. The mystics whirl toward her. Behind Nori, Poppy jolts awake with a small gasp. Nori forces a smile and waves as if greeting travelers. "Looking for someone, are we?" she says in a loud, overly friendly tone, hoping to distract them. "I think I saw who you're after go that way." She points off toward the west, the opposite direction from which the stranger actually departed. It's a desperate ruse, but all she can think to do. For a beat, the pale women regard Nori with blank, pitiless expressions. The Dweller narrows her eyes. "Lies!" she spits softly. With terrifying speed, she flicks her hand toward Nori. The Dweller raises a hand, pausing as if expecting submission. When Nori does not move, a blast of unseen force knocks her off her feet and sends her tumbling backward. Poppy screams and scrambles to Nori's side, helping her up. The Harfoots are fully roused now, cries of alarm echoing through the camp. Seeing their prey attempting to flee, the mystics act. The Dweller thrusts her staff into the air and a tongue of flame ignites at its tip. With a swirling motion, she sends tendrils of fire slithering across the ground toward the caravans. Dry wheels and old would catch in an instant. Within moments, half the wagons are ablaze, illuminating the grove in hellish light. Harfoots scatter, grabbing whatever belongings they can save, pulling terrified children away from the flames. The peaceful wandering folk have never seen an attack like this. It is chaos. Nori coughs in the sudden smoke, eyes watering, but she refuses to abandon the fight. Spotting Sadok Burrows and her mother Marigold nearby, she urgently beckons them. "They're after the stranger," she manages between coughs. Sadok nods gravely. He already surmised as much. The old trail finder hefts his lantern staff. Marigold puts a protective arm around Nori and Poppy both. "Come on then," Marigold says, voice shaking but resolute. They slip away into the darkness at the edge of the grove, circling around the rampaging mystics. By dawn, those who had scattered began to regroup around Sadok's call. Under Sadok's lead, the small band hurries into the woods. From a ridge above, the stranger watches, guilt flickering across his brow. intent on finding the stranger before the pursuers do. Nori's heart pounds as they rush through the black trees. The sky beyond the canopy is starting to pale toward dawn. Ash drifts on the air. After a few tense minutes, they come upon a moonlit glade not far from the grove's edge. There stands the stranger, alerted by the commotion. He looks bewildered, torn between returning to help the Harfoots and continuing to flee. Nori calls out to him, relief evident in her voice. "They're here, the ones from the stars. Run!" She and the others crash into the clearing just as a chilling laugh echoes behind them. The Dweller and her two acolytes step out of the gloom, forming a half-circle around the stranger. Sadok, Marigold, Poppy, and Nori instinctively put themselves between the mystics and the tall man, brandishing a frying pan and a couple of sticks as pathetic weapons. The Dweller sneers at the display. With a lazy gesture of her hand, she sends a blast of force that knocks Marigold and Poppy aside, leaving only Sadok and Nori standing protectively in front of the stranger. The stranger squares his shoulders and steps forward, placing a hand on Nori's shoulder as if to move her safely behind him. But before he can act, the Dweller does. Her form shimmers and blurs, and suddenly, impossibly, she transforms into an exact likeness of Nori. Nori gasps. It is like looking into a mirror. The same curly hair, the same wide eyes. The false Nori cries out in a perfect imitation of Nori's voice, "Help me! Don't hurt me!" The stranger falters, clearly confused and distressed by the duplicate. He hesitates, unsure which Nori is real and unwilling to strike the wrong one. The other two mystics seize the opportunity. They whisper in an unknown tongue, and creeping tendrils of shadow begin to snake up the stranger's legs, binding him in place. The stranger struggles, but his powers are not fully under his control and panic dulls his strength. Realizing their plan, Nori shakes off her shock. She may not understand magic, but she knows trickery. Ignoring the uncanny sight of her double, she musters her courage and darts toward the Dweller. The mystic is momentarily surprised that Nori is charging rather than the stranger, and she doesn't react fast enough. Nori snatches at the wooden staff in the Dweller's hand. For one awful second, Nori is face to face with her own identical visage twisted in anger. Then she rips the staff free and turns, shouting, "Catch!" She tosses the staff not to Sadok or Poppy, but to the stranger behind her. The bound giant reaches out and grabs the white staff in his fist. Immediately, a shockwave of energy pulses from him, throwing back the two acolytes. The Dweller drops her illusion of Nori, revealing her true wraith-like face contorted in fury. She lunges at Nori, but the stranger has found his focus. Holding the staff aloft, he speaks a word that rings like a clarion bell through the dawn woods. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the staff's tip, expanding outward in a rush of warmth and sound. Nori tumbles backward from the force, landing beside Poppy. When Nori blinks her eyes open, she sees the three mystics writhing in the center of the glade. They are caught in the stranger's radiant light, their forms flickering. One by one, they burn away into shimmering embers, transformed into moths that flutter briefly before vanishing into the sky, or simply reduced to motes of dust. In seconds, the dark pursuers are gone. A hush falls. Nori sits up, her ears ringing. Poppy coughs and helps Marigold to her feet. Sadok? Where is Sadok? There, lying against a stump. The old Harfoot trail finder is on his back, a black dart protruding from his chest. In the confusion of the confrontation, one of the mystics must have struck him with a deadly throw. Nori cries out and rushes to his side, taking Sadok's hand. His breaths are shallow and his eyes glassy, yet he smiles gently as Nori and Marigold gather close. "Well, I'll be," Sadok whispers, I suppose this is as good a place as any to leave the trail. Tears trickle down Nori's cheeks. By the light of the rising sun, Sadok passes peacefully, knowing his people are safe. They bury Sadok in the grove he loved, beneath an ancient oak, and sing a soft Harfoot farewell song as the sun climbs. The fires in the camp have died out, leaving a smoldering ruin of carts. Many supplies were lost, and the surviving Harfoots face a difficult road ahead. But they are alive, thanks to Nori and the stranger. Back at the grove's edge, as the caravan mournfully regroups, Nori's family gathers around her. Largo, leaning on, and Marigold clears his throat. "Nori girl," he begins, voice thick with emotion. "We've been talking, Marigold and me, and we reckon you ought to go." Nori blinks in surprise. Her mother nods, tears in her eyes. "The tall fellow, he needs you," says. "And maybe you need him too, love. Your heart's been out there on the road for a long time now." Marigold steps forward and cups Nori's face in her calloused hand. "Go on," she whispers. "Find what you're meant to find." Dilly, sniffling, presses a small bundle into Nori's hands. It's Nori's own notepad and charcoal stick that she uses for sketching maps and jotting down tales. "So you won't forget anything," Dilly says between sobs. "And so you can bring back stories for us." Nori sweeps her little sister into a tight hug, both of them crying and laughing at once. "I will, Dilly. I promise." Poppy stands a few steps back, wiping her eyes, as Nori turns to the stranger, who is watching this family exchange quietly from a respectful distance. Poppy suddenly straightens her back with resolve. "Wait," she says shakily. "If Nori's going, then I'm going too." Everyone looks at Poppy in surprise. Poppy's chin trembles, but she lifts it bravely. "I can't stay here without my best friend. Besides," she adds with a watery smile, "someone's got to keep her out of trouble." A slow grin spreads on Nori's face. She rushes to Poppy and they embrace fiercely. Largo chuckles and doffs his cap, bowing to Poppy gallantly. "The more the merrier," he says softly. Nori's mother nods in agreement. Poppy has been like a daughter to her ever since Poppy lost her own family. And though it hurts to see both girls leave, it seems right that they go together. The stranger steps forward, his large eyes full of gratitude and something like pride. In the past day, bits and pieces of his memory have begun to return. He now recalls that he is one of the Astari, a servant of the secret fire, a wizard sent to Middle-earth for a purpose. Though much still eludes him, he knows that answers await in the far east, in the lands of Run. That is where the stars point, and where the mystics had sought to lead him astray. With a gentle smile, the stranger bows slightly to Nori's family in thanks and promises he will keep Nori and Poppy safe. The farewell is long and filled with tears, laughter, and tightly held hugs. Nori hugs each of her family members, memorizing the feel of them. Tucks a blanket into Nori's pack for cold nights, she insists. Largo presses his lucky acorn into Nori's palm, the one he always carried for good fortune. Dilly refuses to let go until Nori assures her again and again that she will return with wonderful tales to tell. Even solemn Sadok, Nori thinks, would smile to see the send-off she is given. At last, it is time. The morning sun is climbing, painting the eastern sky in hues of rose and gold. Nori shoulders her pack and takes one of Poppy's hands in her left, one of the stranger's big hands in her right. She looks up at the stranger and asks, "Which way now?" The tall man tilts his head, thinking. He closes his eyes and breathes in deeply, testing the wind. A playful smile curves his lips. "When in doubt, Eleanor Brandyfoot," he says in a warm, gentle tone. "Always follow your nose." Nori isn't entirely sure what he means, but the kindly twinkle in his eye makes her giggle. And so, Eleanor Nori Brandyfoot sets out from the only home she has ever known, hand in hand with her dearest friend and a mysterious wizard from the stars. Together, they walk eastward into the unknown, through the long grass that brushes their knees and toward distant run. The road before them is uncertain and filled with wonders and perils untold. But as Nori glances at her companions, the steadfast Poppy on one side and the gentle stranger on the other, she feels a thrill of hope. Her heart beats fast with both excitement and peace. Whatever comes, they will face it together. And as the trio disappears into the morning light, the gentle sounds of the world carry on around them, ushering them toward a new horizon and the beginning of a legend all their own.